So I've got some handouts, and I'm glad there are only this many people here because my printer ran out of toner last night, so I think we'll have one extra. So basically that is the printed version of this, the first half of this PowerPoint presentation. So you don't need to worry about taking notes or anything unless you want to. In addition, so the first half will be about 30 minutes of just technical information. The second half will be some videos of some work that I've done at customers' houses. So this is finished touch-up and repair for field technicians. And first question, who has refinished a piano before? Brian, Jim, yeah.
I helped once, but I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Okay, yeah.
At all. It was just an old upright though.
Did you strip it all the way down to bare wood? Yeah, start from do some wood repair. Yeah. Anybody else experience?
I love the look on his face when he said, "Did you strip?"
Yeah. Did you strip down?
I was like, what? It wasn't you.
So one thing I would point out, we are not talking about refinishing today. Touch-up is something different than refinishing. Refinishing, we're basically going for perfection. Touch-up, you're going for an improvement. Perfection is rarely possible with a touch-up. You're trying to blend in a repair to an existing finish. And I guess I would also point out that refinishing is not generally considered piano technology. It is a craft of its own. It's considered, I've heard a few terms thrown around, an allied craft, allied trade, allied art. So it's very closely associated with piano technology because there is obviously a furniture component to pianos, a cosmetic component, but technically we're veering away from strict piano technology today. But this type of work, there is a lot of opportunity. Pretty much any piano you look at, there is room for improvement cosmetically. I've had a lot of customers ask me over the years. I've been a technician for 25 years. I've refinished one piano. That was about 20 years ago. It was my own piano. And since then, I've pretty much had decided up until about a year ago that I wasn't going to get into that, for sure not complete refinishing. But I did carry around a touch-up marker, which I'm sure a lot of you have carried around, the black touch-up marker. But that was basically the extent of my touch-up for about 20 years. So all of what I'm saying today, I'll also give a disclaimer: proceed with caution and know your limitations and start small, probably with older pianos. So a year and a half ago, I took a course from Mike Ello. This is his book. He came out with this a couple of years ago, and he offers a 2-day training seminar at the PTG head office down in Kansas. And I took that, so in spring of 2024. The first day, we do lacquer repair, and the second day was polyester repair. So it was 2 full days. So what I'm doing here today is just a very condensed version. I'm, again, doing a little bit of technical, just to lay the groundwork, because even though a finish technician or a touch-up technician does not do complete refinishing, we need to understand the different, what's involved with a finish. So the first thing I'd like to do is just briefly go over the different layers of a finish. So we're starting with the wood veneer. And I'm not going to go into details. Again, refinishing is an art unto itself. There are a lot of details in terms of preparation for all of these stages, but just for what we're talking about today, I wanted to at least give a brief overview. So we start with the wood veneer. Then there's going to be a grain filler. That's assuming it's a closed pore finish. Wood has, it's not perfectly flat. It basically goes like that. So we're filling the pores. Next, if it's a colored grain, you're going to be adding stain. I believe grain filler is colored as well. It can be different colors depending on the wood species. And then the stain, of course, different colors, blending different areas. You know, wood is, some parts are dark, some parts are light. But and then the next layer will be some sort of a sealer. And this will fill in, it'll seal off the wood and also fill the remainder of the pores. And then ideally after the sealer, we're dealing with a perfectly level surface. And then the final layer is the top coat. And so these are the basic layers here. And I'll do one more quick diagram. So this will be, that's the wood veneer. And now this top level here, the top coat, just like this. This is the, how did I word that? I guess this top coat. So this is the final layer here. And I'll be coming back to these diagrams once I start discussing some of the details of touch-up repair. Okay, types of finishes. So 3 main categories: lacquer, polyester, and polyurethane. Of these 3, lacquer would be the oldest. There are also finishes that predate these, but these, I believe, are the current, the majority of the current. There might be some additional manufacturers using different chemical makeups. I don't know exactly, but I think by far these 3 would be the main ones. And I'll just discuss some of the basic characteristics of each. And so lacquer, apparently, according to Google, was invented in 1921 by DuPont. It was originally used as a car coating. And I don't know when it entered the piano.
It's a result of the Second World War, First World War. There was an excess of gunpowder.
Oh, interesting.
That's what became on the automobiles after that.
I see. Okay. I think so. Probably before, for sure, before 1921, would shellac or some sort of varnish been the major refinishing material?
That's an animal product, right?
Hmm. But
Shellac was widely used in varnish after that.
okay, it's my understanding that if you see some of the big older uprights from turn of the last century, 1900 to 1920, a lot of those were the shellac finishes that very commonly turn dark brown and they crackle. So that's a characteristic. I guess the finish gets brittle. So it's a lacquer is applied in multiple layers. The solvent flashes off, then cures hard over time. And it's a slow curing process. I think lacquer, to fully cure 6 months,
Easy.
easy. Yeah, I know. I've heard an 80% cure maybe in a month, but 100% cure takes much longer, and so lacquer, and again, that top layer is what we're talking about. It can be either clear or it can be black. So you can have or it can be colored for that matter. Any color. It can be opaque, so not a solid color. And the gloss, you can have different glosses. And I'll get into that a little bit more later and discuss exactly what a gloss is. But it can be shiny or it can be not shiny, or different gradients between those two extremes. And it's usually about 10 thousandths of an inch thick. So it's actually very, very thin. And I'm just going to hand this around. This is I'm not sure what kind of piano this was taken off of, but this is a 10,000th of an inch punching. And don't mistake the thickness for you have the veneer.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have a tiny little finish on top of the veneer. So it's if you're going to be doing any kind of sanding on lacquer to get out scratches, proceed with extreme caution. A good rule of thumb with any finish is to remove, or any kind of scratch repair, remove as little material as possible, because you risk cutting through. So that's lacquer. Some pros. It's relatively easy to repair because you can spray new lacquer over old lacquer and it actually chemically bonds. It's flexible when new anyways, or relatively new, so it moves with the wood somewhat. And it is most natural. That's compared with thicker finishes. Sometimes the thicker clear finishes might look a little plasticky or artificial, but maybe that's a judgment statement. But and lacquer cons, so it's not resistant to water or chemicals. That's a big one. It's prone to scratches, fingernail scratches on the fallboard are very common. It can yellow with age. It can get brittle with age. So now polyester was invented in the 60s. So it's a different sort of process with polyester. I believe they call it a catalyzed finish. It's where you're mixing a hardener and a resin, or two parts together, and it creates a lot of heat, and it basically cures maybe in about an hour. It could be, depending, I don't know what technically at the factories, but it's much, much quicker than lacquer would cure. I don't know if that's why a lot of modern manufacturers have switched to it. It's very durable. It's very thick. And here I'll just pass out. This is a polyester finish. This one's 30 thousandths of an inch thick. So you have it's a lot more forgiving when doing any kind of sanding or buffing. Again, it can be clear or black. I'd say majority of the time, it's high polish. That's one of its benefits, is that it can be brought up to an extremely high sheen. So pros: water and chemical resistant to scratches. I've talked about these already. It can be buffed or sanded out easily. More resistant to yellowing, although it's my understanding it can still yellow, the clear polyester, but it's maybe a little bit more resistant to UV yellowing. I'm not 100% sure on that. And again, I'm open to input. I'm relatively new to this. I've been in this, studying this for about a year and a half, and I still have a ways to go, but I'm sharing what I know.
Nothing stops UVs from doing destruction, though. Even, it doesn't matter what it is. The polyester actually starts to break down and flake
Okay.
from being directly in the sun. And you'll see the clear ones, you'll see them fade, just like you do any other piano. The finish, the finish will probably still be okay.
Oh,
But
it underneath, so the UV gets through to the stain level and it deteriorates the color.
Correct.
Even
It stops UVs.
okay.
They're very destructive.
Interesting. Yeah. One nice thing about with the chemical resistance, you can put acetone on polyester and it won't eat through it. So that's a very strong solvent. If you would do that on lacquer
Or on key tops.
or on key tops, yeah, you pretty much wreck the finish. And even water will soak through. I'm sure you've all seen the water rings, and I have a few examples of that. Problems are it's more difficult to repair in terms of if you have doing fill sorts of repairs. And it is prone, it's not flexible, so it does, it's more prone to, like if you bump it, because it's such a strong structure, it's somehow it creates a dent. Okay, let's go on to the next. Polyurethane, again, invented in the 1960s. It can be any sheen. It's kind of an in-between, I think of it as, between lacquer and polyester. So I won't spend too much time on this. How to identify the finish? Acetone. You can pick a really inconspicuous spot and just use a Q-tip or cotton swab or anything and just dab it on the finish. And if it becomes sticky, it's most likely lacquer. If it doesn't, you're most likely dealing with polyester. I believe polyurethane will dissolve, but not anywhere near as easily as lacquer. You can also sand it to see what you're dealing with. If it's white, it's going to be polyester, but if it's black or clear, it's most likely lacquer. And again, I won't go over all of this. It's in your notes if you want to refer back to it. And shellac and varnish. These are some of the older finishes. Varnish, I think, can mean any number of things. I don't think there's one specific recipe. That's why I have it in quotations. And shellac, again, the older finishes. Okay, types of damage: UV damage, moisture, cold and heat. You can have the wood veneer moving underneath the finish, causing problems. You can have the finish itself that heats up or colds up or cools off, expanding, contracting, causing problems. Chemicals on lacquer, abrasion, any kind of rubbing or scratching, impact. Problems with adhesion. I think UV sometimes can weaken the adhesion, so it starts flaking off, like you were saying, Brian. And then cracking or checking. And I have a picture here. This is a Steinway with a lacquer finished with checking, basically. I think that's also referred to as crazing or alligator, or there are different terms for that. So depth of damage. I'd like to do a few more drawings here. And actually, while I'm doing this, I'd like to I'm going to hand around this. This is an auto tool. It's sold in the auto trade. It's for color matching paint. So I'm going to hand this around. So one side is it's sprayed with high polish or high gloss lacquer. But I want you actually to look at the other side. It's polyester. And if you look at it, well, if you look at it from a distance, you probably, I don't know if you can see the scratches from there. Probably not. But just see what it looks like under light. And also run your thumbnail across some of the different scratches to see if you can feel them. There'll be scratches, some of them you can see, but you can't feel. Other ones, you can feel them, but your fingernail doesn't catch. And then deeper ones, your fingernail actually catches in it. So that's a very good way to kind of determine different depths. And I just left it on the whitest light there. It has 3 different colors, but, and so I'll just briefly go over the depths of, and again, so for that, this is, this top coat is all polyester. And so we have a tiny little scratch. I'm going to call that that's one you can see but not feel. That I'm going to define as a light scratch or a micro scratch. And then we have next would be it's a one that you can feel it, but your fingernail doesn't catch. So I'm calling that a medium. And then the next one, we're going to call that a deep scratch. And you can see we're not anywhere near all the way through the finish yet. We're just still relatively shallow, but for the terms of fingernail test, this is considered a deep scratch. And then a few other, and this could be, we don't know how deep it is exactly. It could be all the way down to here. So there's a lot of, these are just kind of, or from the next category, I'm going to say is all the way down to the wood. And then we have one that goes down into the wood. And that's where we're getting into gouge territory. This one just gets down to the wood. So if this were a clear finish, we'd be getting down into the stain level. So it could affect color, but it's not going down into the wood where you see bare wood. So those are going to be the categorization definitions as far as touch-up repair go. Okay, assessing for repair. These are just some guidelines. Again, please proceed with caution. So should I be attempting this repair? These are all questions I've asked myself. Do I have all the tools and materials for this repair? Will I make it worse? What is the lighting like in the room? That's very important. If it's a repair right at the bottom in a dark room on a leg, it's not as critical as something right in the middle under high light, where it's the first thing you see when you walk in the room. And some of those repairs, you know, depending on your skill level, you might just want to walk away from, which is perfectly fine. And will the repair blend with the existing finish? What are the customer expectations? That's a big one. Again, stressing to the customer that we're not trying to refinish the piece. If there's a scratch, we're trying to improve it. And do I have a backup plan? So if I mess it up, do I know a good refinisher that I can call on to back me up? Okay, priorities of repair. And this, so the first thing I think that catches your eye visually, any kind of damage, would be the color. So if the color is off, you're going to see it from pretty far away. So that would be my first priority. And that, and then the level, and that just refers to if it's perfectly flat or if it has a bit of a dip in it, like due to a scratch or some sort of damage, that'll affect the way that light hits it, and you'll see that. And sheen is closely related to that, but is more, I think, spread out over a larger area. Like if you have a dull spot, you may or may not see that from across the room, depending on the lighting. Definitely not in terms of priority. Color again is at the top, and level and sheen, I would say, are pretty neck and neck. Okay, so some in terms of color, the first priority, a few things. The touch-up marker is one solution. Tinted lacquer and stain. So here are some touch-up markers that I carry. I've kind of been adding to my collection slowly. And these technically aren't markers. These are more of it's kind of like a waxy sort of a pencil. I haven't tried those yet, but I thought they looked interesting. But these Mohawk markers are really nice. I personally like the Pro Mark, and again, this is all in if you're following along at all, and there's a tool list in there as well. But I personally like these Pro Mark, and then the Sharpie works as well, and these are just some different colors. So some nice options. These are particularly nice for edges. If you have a really fine scratch, these markers are hard to get in there without affecting the surrounding finish. So there, you might want to try some other, and I'll get into that as well. And these tinted lacquers are nice. These I bought from Schaff. So these middle ones here are all different colors. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 colors, and they can all be mixed, and you can, there are different ways of using them. I'll get into that a little bit. And then just in general, I think it's nice. I carry a black gloss. These are all lacquers, by the way. So a black gloss, a black satin, and then a clear gloss and a clear satin. Just kind of a general toolkit. You can really cover a lot of ground with those supplies. And just some basic tools here. It's different size brushes. You can get really nice, like really tiny little brushes. And you can just really get into little spaces, little areas. Lacquer thinner. This here is for cleaning the brushes. And I like to spray those toners into these little cups and then just dip your paintbrush in there. Gloves and a respirator. And here's one I've been experimenting with, this Howard Restora finish. And this I found Jacob Emsch is a piano rebuilder and refinisher in Indiana. And he has some very, very good YouTube videos where he's using this product to do he does full refinishing, but he also does these are tidying up an old worn finish. It's a very nice product for that, and I have a video showing some demonstrations with that in the second half of this. This Corey is a product. They sell a lot of cleaning supplies in the piano trade. They also have this. It's called Scratch Bright. It's basically a brown. You rub it on with a wipe, and it can fill in color on scratches on different shades of browns. It's just very handy to have. Some wiping cloths to apply those products.
I had a customer that did that restore and stuff, and the piano was really great.
Yeah, it's amazing what you again. It's Jacob Emsch. Some of his videos are very, very nice.
We have a whole cabinet of it back there.
Oh, do you too? Okay.
Yeah, we do it on the used uprights a lot of times.
Yeah.
Consoles.
Nice. Okay, next is the level, and let's see. Oh, so sanding versus filling. This is when you're trying to decide what to do with these different level of scratches. If something's small like this and you're dealing with a thick polyester finish, that can easily be buffed out. I would say any of these light scratches could be buffed out on this polyester finish using a buffing machine. The same is true with a medium scratch. Those are the ones that you can feel, but your fingernail doesn't catch, so it's a little bit deeper. You might have to do a little bit of sanding or be a little bit more aggressive with the buffer. Now, once you get it from about anything beyond that, especially at these extremes, obviously if you sand all of that, you're going to be down to the wood. So that's not even an option. This is a situation where you need to fill that with some sort of material to bring up the level. And these deep scratches, this is where it gets tricky, because if you have a deep scratch right in the middle of a large piece, obviously you don't want to sand down the entire piece just to get at that one scratch. So sometimes you're better off filling that, and sometimes you actually have to make that worse in order for it to properly add fill material. But it may be a better solution than trying to sand the entire piece down, because another problem is that you can create, if you're just trying to sand a small area, and then you end up buffing, what you end up, or you're sanding, and you keep enlarging it, you're going to create a wave, and that also creates a problem. So you look at that perfectly flat level and it's got a wave in it. So, but for light and medium scratches, they can usually be buffed or sanded out. And again, that very, very thin amounts. And some supplies that I carry here, just different grits, sanding paper. I have from 400 grit. I have up to 2,500 grit, just the flat papers like this. Some sanding blocks. These are really nice. These are, again, I found them in the automotive, whatever area of Amazon. They're just these little blocks, and they come in different grits here. Just very nice for wet sanding, small little spots. And if you have a bigger area, these I actually, this is a dual action orbital sander. It's a 5-inch. So it not only rotates, but it actually, it creates a pattern that's not only circular, but it's a little more varied. And here I have sanding discs all the way up to 4,000 grit. And then I have some different pads here. And I'll show you what I use those for in the video section. I'm trying to speed through this a little bit because this is, I'm trying to be done by 9 o'clock. So bear with me here. Sheen. Okay, what is Sheen? Oh, one more diagram. So sheen is basically how light bounces off the surface. And so again, there's our wood, there's our top coat. So on a high gloss sheen, this top level or top surface is perfectly flat. So your light comes down at one angle and it bounces off at exactly the same angle. And that's what creates the mirror effect. So basically, it's you can see yourself in it. So that's high gloss. Then we have, again, that's the wood veneer, top coat. We have a satin finish. So there are two different types of satin. The first one, there's actually, within the finish itself, there is, what do they call that? Flattening agents. It's little particles. I think it's silica, silica powder or talc that's infused in the finish. So basically, when light hits it, and no matter, even if it's perfectly flat on the top, you've still got these little microscopic particles in there. So when light hits it, it hits those particles, and instead of coming off at the same angle, it actually scatters. And that's so you don't get that mirror effect. It's more of a softer glow, the way that the light's coming back. And then the third type of satin finish, it's what they call a hand rubbed satin finish. So this can be a clear high gloss lacquer, for example. But you can create a scratch pattern in the surface, which basically acts in the same way. It diffuses the light. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention about this, these particles, it can slightly cloud the finish, so it's not as clear. Whereas this hand rub finish, you still have the very clear lacquer, but you have the light that scatters. It creates a different effect because you actually also see the scratch lines on the surface. So this is what Steinway used for many years for their satin, and I think a lot of manufacturers as well, but probably Mason and Hamlin. So those are the three, or I guess two, you have the high gloss and the two types of satin. So high gloss, so buffing equipment. This is something I always wanted, so I splurged. This is I think it's a 7-inch polisher, they call it, and here are some of the attachments. I'm curious what if you don't mind me asking, at the shop here, I know there are two different kinds of buffing wheels. There's more of a pad, and then there's one that you would be polishing on the edge. Do you have a preference for one or the other? At the
one on the right.
This one?
Yeah, we just stack it so we get a pad like this thick.
Okay, yeah.
Like this wide.
Yeah.
And then we're using the GW16 dry.
Oh, this here.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's on a polyester? Okay. Yeah, I got, and these are somewhat expensive. The two of these, I think they were about $75 each. But I'm hoping those will last for a while. And I don't know exactly how to clean them. I mean, I've used this, but you can see it's, I guess it's just stained, but.
Yeah, they get stained, but usually just use a sharp edge. I have an old chisel that I keep sharpening into that, and then clean it off with it's like 30 grit sandpaper.
Oh, okay.
Big nuggets, and you use that for when it's running.
Okay, yeah.
Over it.
Yeah.
And that knocks off all the hard particles, and then you apply more polish.
Okay.
And
Do you ever,
do that occasionally.
do you use, do you have a dedicated pad for one type of polish, or do you mix different polishes on the same pad?
Don't use any wet.
You don't use any wet, okay.
Wet is only done by hand.
I see.
Do it with the machine.
Okay.
Then you use the hand glaze or the finesse.
Just by, oh, okay, on machine, okay.
After you do the machine work, it's
I see, okay.
gets rid of the swirl marks, etc.
Yeah,
Trying to do it wet is extremely messy.
yeah, I have a video of that coming up, so. And,
Messy, I don't think you gain a whole lot, honestly.
yeah,
You pretty much do it all with the dry. However, don't recommend doing it in the house.
okay, yeah,
Unless it's really small. If you do a bunch in the house, I mean, that dust just goes everywhere. And if you, like just when wheeling key tops, if you go like this on your forehead, you'll feel the grit.
yeah, it's a really fine,
Oily,
yeah.
and it's sand, basically.
yeah,
Like and it just sticks all over to you.
interesting, yeah. And that's
You don't wanna
most
do
of,
that in
that,
the house.
and that's that dry compound. It's my understanding that like on a polyester, you could sand all the way up to 4,000 grit, and then use one of those wheels, and you're actually melting the surface to create that flat.
Sanding's the same thing on wood. You're creating friction, creating heat.
Heat. Oh yeah.
And I go up to 12,000, by the way.
Oh wow. Okay. Nice.
That works really nice because you don't have to do much wheeling. Because how often do you sand? It's not that often, other than repairs.
Yeah.
Right? So, but you take it up to 12,000 with a micro mesh. It's called.
Nice.
You might want to note that down.
Okay. Micro mesh.
Micro mesh. You get it in a kit, and it lasts a long time. If you reuse it, I always use it with water, and it goes up to 12,000.
Nice.
May I ask what compound are you using on these wheels?
Yeah, so, and one thing, a lot of this stuff is available from Allied. That's a very good resource for all of these. For this compound, it's a dry compound. So, yeah, and this is the one that I've used, GW16, and I got it from Allied.
Allied Supply?
Allied, yeah, it's in the, there's a...
I deal with them with bandage and stuff.
Oh, do you? Okay. It's Allied, I forget what the full name is, Finish, Piano and Finish.
Okay, all right, there's a different Allied.
It could be.
There are about 12 of them out there.
It could be, yeah.
It's the same stuff you use in the plastic keytops.
Oh, is it? Okay. I know they have a few different versions of this. You know, this is the final fin. Like, here's a number from 1 to 5. This is number 4.
Is that, did you say it's an oily?
It's a hard substance, and basically, you turn your wheel, and then you press it against it, and maybe a little oily. Yeah.
Some of the traditional buffing compounds, they have like a white and a
Kind of reddish.
red rouge, Burns Red Rouge for brass is very popular, but it's a tallow base. And I know there's some that are more kind of water based and that sort of thing. So
Well, they have to hold the brick together with the stuff.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
The oily part is
Yeah.
pretty natural.
yeah.
And the red does work, but
I wouldn't
it's
want to
really
use it.
nasty.
I wouldn't want to use it on this kind of thing. No,
Well, it just goes in there.
it's great on brass, but I wouldn't do it on anything like this.
And polyester, I guess brass is hard as well, but polyester is very hard. This is at least the one that I was recommended for using on polyester. And so and you can also get these attachments if you don't want to go full, if you're just dealing with small little repairs. They make all these attachments for, I think I got this at Harbor Freight. And these are 3-inch sponges, and sanding, these again go from all the way up to, I think, 3,000 or 4,000 I have grits. And that 2-inch, so it's a nice option to have. You can even just use a drill, I suppose, a variable speed drill. And then beyond that, these are nice for doing some hand buffing. These are just sponges, and again, I got these at Allied. Not 100% sure that they carry those anymore, but they all just attach with Velcro. And these I do use the liquid on there, just and then you can just hand buff. And this is a nylon brush. So to clean these, you just run them under water and you use a nylon brush. And set 2 types, we've talked about this. And for applying that scratch pattern, actually something I printed out, and I don't think I have enough of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm too short. But the Steinway, this is a 2015 reference manual for finish tips and techniques. It discusses in detail how the finishes are applied for both the this is when Steinway was still primarily using lacquer. I think they switched over to polyester right around that time as their primary. Their consequents are now the polyester. Pardon me? I think you can get lacquer, but it's more of a special order. If I'm not mistaken, you probably pay way more for it. It is more, but they do have the polyester equipment at the factory in New York now, which wasn't the case up until, I guess apparently it was hard on the environment somehow. It wasn't allowed in North America up until, I guess, maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah, now they decided the VLCs are way better than regular lacquer.
Oh, interesting. Okay. But I know they...
All organic components. That's what that means, right? VLC
Is that what it is? Okay, but I know they do have at the factory in New York, and I have a video of it, but unfortunately I didn't bring it along. But they invested, I forget how many millions of dollars on this specialized buffing machine, and they put out, I think they say they can do 6 grands a day with that machine. So that's one of their bottlenecks, anyways. But
The current company is not the same company 5 years ago, or 6 or 7.
okay, yeah, I took the video. It would have been in 2023 of their room. They were very proudly showing off their polyester buffing machine.
That's only
I saw it 2024. It's
Did you see it? Yeah, it's pretty neat, right? Yeah, cool. So if anyone's interested, I'll just leave these here.
Manufacturers went to that because it is a lot.
It's faster.
It's
Yeah.
faster. It's not that it's all that much greater. It's faster.
Okay.
And
Some.
a lot of times you'll find that there's a plastic laminate under black. There's actually like a piece of plastic, and then they put the finish on top of that, or it's
Oh.
like a press board that they put the finish on top of.
For the polyester.
Yep. something more
Yeah.
stable.
I know they can. Polyurethane is used. I think Steinway even details that for some of their Boston and Essex lines. They use polyester as a base, as a seal coat, and then polyester on top of
It's
polyurethane.
a nightmare.
Is it okay?
Fix, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bad thing about it.
Yeah.
And then there's certain problems. I mean, Mason Hamlin went through that where their stuff would all turn cloudy. Top polyester coat.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And some lighting is very important doing this kind of work. I really like this as a tripod that goes up about that high. And I use it for all sorts of things. I used it today. I was regulating a piano in a dark room. So it's just very, very handy for cleaning. It's great. But for finish, any kind of touch up, you really need to have proper lighting so you can see what you're doing. Tools, here's the tool list. I won't go through everything here. That's all in your handout there. And this is the where I bought all of those tools from. And I just wanted to show this is a very handy cart. I got that at Harbor Freight. I use that all the time. I used it today. I was at a church, again, regulating that piano. It was all my tools in the parking lot. So you have to get all your tools from the parking lot to the sanctuary. So it's a long walk. So that cart saves a lot of time, and it folds up flat. Very, very convenient. And I'll just go over this quickly. So some prep work for doing any kind of touch-up. You want cleaning. Here are a few different options. Cori products. These are my go-tos. And I use those both myself for doing this work, but I also carry those. Customers quite often ask how to clean their piano. So I have my 3 basic ones. If you have a heavy grime buildup or any kind of wax buildup that you're trying to clean off, the pre-polish, Cori pre-polish. And then if you're just trying to get off fingerprints or just ongoing dusting sort of applications, the satin sheen for a satin finish or the high polish, the super high gloss are just very nice. And then all sorts of different kinds of cloths. My go-tos, these are just microfiber cloths. I get them at Meyer in the automotive section. They come in bags. I think they're, I don't know, less than $1 a piece, but they're different qualities. I've been through a few different kinds. Some are really flimsy. These are the ones I personally like. And then Cori sells the high end. And the nice thing about these is that they don't have any stitching on them. And these, they have stitching, and they also have a tag on them. So make sure to pull the tag off, because if you don't want to swirl around a tag on your beautiful new finish. So it's,
For the special pattern.
yeah, right, yeah. So just a few options. Okay, so now we're into some videos. And so removing paint. I'll just let this one play through. It's very short. Oh, I guess I have to press play. That's just water and steel wool. I think that's, they call it 4/0 or 0000. So very, very fine steel wool. And that's a satin finish. I I'm pretty sure it's either lacquer or a polyurethane. It's a 70s piano, and just on the leg there.
So the piano just bumped into something that had white paint on it or something?
Most likely it was moved through a doorway or something like that. So this, and that just takes it right off. And it was fine. It didn't, sometimes if you use that steel wool, it can kind of dull the finish a little bit. In this case, it didn't. That finish was so hard on there. It wasn't obvious to my eye. If it does, you could just buff it slightly with a terry towel and maybe a little bit of that 3M compound, just to kind of brighten it up a little bit to match the sheen. But that's just an option. Now, if you're dealing with polyester and you have paint on there, I think it's fairly safe to say you can use almost anything chemically. You could even use acetone to get that off of there if you wanted to. You probably wouldn't want to use steel wool on a high polished polyester, because then you will see those scratches. But on a satin finish, just a little bit of steel wool. Touch-up markers. So here, obviously, okay, so we have a piece of veneer that's completely missing. So short of, if this were an expensive piano, and I'm not going to be getting into any kind of veneer repair, although that is another area for touch-up technicians to get into. It's a more advanced sort of repair. But if you, again, with color being the priority from what people see from across the room, if you want to do something very quick, just take a touch-up marker and again, I wasn't aiming for perfection, but and they didn't even ask me to do this. This was actually a piano at a retirement home or a nursing home. So I just spent a few minutes.
That makes a lot of difference.
It makes a big difference, yeah. And then there was this whole edge. It was on this same piano where that paint was. So they may have just been a little aggressive going through a doorway. So this whole edge.
That makes a world of difference.
So, and it's not a perfect color match, but you get the idea there. And so, and here's that same piano. This was that edge right there. So again, from across the room, for taking less than a minute, that's just something nice you can do.
And it's right in front of the radiant heat.
Yeah, that piano doesn't stay in tune very well for some reason.
Where the sunlight can hit it.
Yes. So that's this. I'm going to skip.
Perfect piano placement.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, now this is a little bit of a longer video. So let's see, how long is this one? Well, this is a 6-minute video, but there are a lot of interesting things. So this was a 1941, I think it was a 41 Chickering grand piano in a customer's home. And she had that, there's that obvious water stain right on top, and the lid is just, you see it's all checkered. And a few years back, she had inquired about it, and I had suggested refinishing. She got a quote for $5,000 to refinish the piano. And needless to say, she hadn't done anything about it in the meantime. So I decided I was going to try. I told her I could improve it. It wouldn't be the same as refinishing. And here I'm just using, this is that lacquer toner. And I picked some colors starting from the lightest. And I'm just filling it in with a brush. And I'm not actually going this fast. This is sped up.
Get a lot of coffee. A lot of caffeine.
So this is phase 1. Now phase 2, a little bit of a darker color. So this.
How long did this take?
So this was a 2-hour appointment. Actually, it turned into, with everything was about 2.5 hours by the time I pulled into the driveway and pulled out. That includes loading and unloading all my tools. and I'll show you exactly what I brought in to do this job. This was I quoted it as a roughly 2-hour job, and just in terms of pricing this, I guess I won't get into specifics, but I can mention I had my car detailed a few years back. Very similar sort of time frame. You know, they went through and buffed it out. You know, that was a $300 or $400 job. So compared to $5,000, she was, well, this is all still phase one here, with dealing with the most obvious spot. But then I thought, well, while I'm at it, so I had that Howard Restore a finish, and I used some very, very fine steel wool, and again, Jacob Emsch, this is where I got the idea from. I went over the entire piano. Just part of the problem was that where the lid flipped over, there was very obvious color difference between the area that got a lot of UV and the area under the lid was much darker and also much redder. So this really evened out the tone. So there I'm just wiping it on, and then you wipe it off pretty much immediately with a terry towel to get off the excess.
How
And
high
then-
were you when you got done? It's really good.
How what? How
How high?
how high? Yeah, right. I floated out there pretty much, but then also did the sides of the piano. And again, in and out in 2.5 hours. So I charged her $300. She gave me a $100 tip. She was thrilled with it.
Nice.
So that's still wiping it off, and there's still one. And this I took a chance with what I'm doing here. So this, I actually top coated it with a satin lacquer. And so this, people that know how to spray piano, this is actually the first time I've ever done this. One mistake I made is that I'm spraying this way. I should have sprayed this way, because you always need to be aware of your
Open your windows for a little bit. I don't know what was pop.
You always want to be aware of your overspray. So that's, I haven't really done a lot of spraying, but just one tip. And again, Jacob Emsch goes into detail about that. And this is all, it's still a learning experience. So I would say pretty much every job I've had in the last 1.5 years, I've made some mistake. I mean, the customer has always been happy, but I've learned something. So I'm just going to continue with this.
Open air it out. There's a little bit of fumes now for the next hour or so. All right.
Was she?
Here's her reaction.
Just gonna let that dry now. Oh my so it got a ways to go yet just to dry, but
It's gorgeous.
I think especially when you I got the light shining right on it, you can take it off.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Once it dries,
Yeah.
and you step back.
Oh, it's, yeah. I won't have to put a cover on it now.
Yeah, it's a little, yeah.
I have that green cover I put on this whole lap and put it on there just to cover it up, so.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks great.
And I kind of did the whole piano once over with,
Yeah, I saw that.
with that oil stuff to kind of put a little bit of color in it to try and even it out a little bit. So.
Good, I'm ready now.
So you didn't have a reaction problem when you sprayed that stuff over
She said,
over that
no, actually, I know they warn against that, but
oil?
yeah, no, if you wipe it off, and it's a bit of a concern, but
Yeah.
Jacob Emsch has done hundreds of pianos like this,
Pictures are worth 1,000 words.
and he hasn't, that's how they did it.
Reaction problem.
Yeah, no. So this is, again, up close. It's not perfect. And so here's my tool setup. But that is something to consider definitely with the reaction with it potentially clouding or the finish not.
it can actually peel up and coagulate. That's part of the biggest problem with refinishing is reaction problems.
Yeah.
That's why we still, to this day, we actually use a shellac for a sealer,
Okay.
and that gives you a barrier coat. It's very compatible with everything for the most part,
Yeah.
and keeps stuff from it's in the wood. You can't get it out when you strip it. It doesn't come out. So it gives that barrier between that and the lacquer
Yeah.
for longevity, as well as it doesn't freak out, basically.
Yeah.
What we call this when you spray it on and all of a sudden your finish is just bubbling up, or
Yeah. Yeah. No. It. Yeah.
blood.
That's. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's.
It happens. That's the biggest thing about the finish touch-up thing. Is
Yes.
when you spray stuff.
Yeah.
Careful about that.
Yeah. And especially in someone's home too. I was taking a bit of a chance here, admittedly.
Yeah, you're brave. I don't even see anything on the floor.
Oh. Yeah. Overspray wise and.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
you didn't put anything down.
Yeah. No. I just
Yeah,
used
all
my.
stain stuff. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah.
It's risky.
So here's another common situation. This is a 1970s Yamaha Grand. And this tip I got from you, Brian, to use denatured alcohol. So it looks to me like, and that's a lacquer top coat on there, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's
But it looks to me like someone set something hot on there and moisture got into that finish and clouded it. So what the denatured alcohol does is it softens the finish and it allows the moisture to escape. And this is the second time I've done this. But I was surprised at when I first tried this, I was so cautious just with touching it. I was afraid I was going to, but it actually took quite a while to get it to soften enough for that. And you can see it does damage the surrounding finish a little bit, and the ring is still there. So now I start with sanding a little bit, and I'm just taking it one step at a time.
little needle nose pliers.
What grit was that?
That was 1,000 grit. You still see it. So now I'm getting into some of that hand rubbing just to try and get the sheen back. Again, just taking it gradually. Because again, it's lacquer, you're working with a very thin layer of material on top there. So before I went any further to attack that circle, I wanted to see if I could match the sheen. It's better, you can still see it, the ring. Then I went up to 1,500. I just wanted to remove a tiny bit more. And that actually seemed to work. And then what I did, I took 2,000 and went over the entire piece, since it's a small piece, just to try and blend it in. And then went and polished the whole thing, the whole section. So I think I got that water ring out.
Did you?
Yeah, do you want to take a look?
Yeah, I do.
It was right there.
Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh.
So it's kind of disappeared, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I'm pretty.
That's so cool.
Thank you, Andrew.
Leave your name tag.
Wow, look at all the scratches.
This is at a school that I'm at. I've serviced this piano since it was new. And they got these pianos back in 2007-ish. And I've never done anything to them. I guess this was one of the reasons I was interested in learning about finish repair. This particular school has 2 Steinway A's, a Steinway B, a Steinway D, and a 45-inch Steinway upright, but all the lacquer versions, and they're all the same age, and they all look like this. So it's been my project last year and this year. I'm going through all the pianos and touching things up and learning what to do and what not to do. And these scratches on the Fallboard were deep enough that, well, and actually before that, one mistake I made is that I used the touch-up pen before I did my sanding, and I basically sanded off everything that I did with the touch-up pen. So if you're going to do any of this kind of sanding, use the touch-up pen afterwards. I don't need to show all of this. So I start with 400 grit, and this again is detailed in the Steinway's reference guide. And this is just wet sanding. This is just water I'm spraying on. And you don't have to use a sponge like this. You can just use 400 grit paper with any kind of block. And I'm going in the direction of the existing scratch pattern. You don't want to go across it. And when I say scratch pattern, for those of you that aren't familiar, if you look really closely and you shine a light across it, you do see lines. It's not perfectly smooth.
Satin finish.
Yes, yeah, it's a hand rubbed. They call this a satin luster, and I'll show you why. It's not a complete satin. It's got a little bit of a shine to it. So there's 3 different, there's a high gloss, there's the satin, and then there's the satin luster, which is between the 2. But if you can imagine the process at the factory or here as well, going through an entire piano, it's very labor intensive.
Yeah, this is the finish that we do.
And that's the brass inlay, by the way. I've had people ask me about that. And
The label.
the name there. So I'm just going right over that. And I think that's just exposed brass that's flush with the surrounding surface, with the surrounding lacquer.
It depends. A lot of times there's a clear coat over it. It's black. And the decal is actually sanded with black paint, and you get it all off, and then put clear over the top.
Oh, I see.
Keeps it from tarnishing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. Usually
And
clear over the top.
I know some of the older Steinways, they don't have the brass inlay. It would just be more of a sticker.
Yeah, stay away from
So that you probably don't want to be sanding right over the name on a sticker. So here's just a process. Again, I'm just removing as little as possible. And if there were any scratches that, after doing this, and I knew that this had never been done to this piano before, because I've been servicing it since it was new. So I knew that I was dealing with an original finish.
Do you know how thick that brass is? Can you
I don't.
wear right through it when you sand?
I don't think you can.
It's thick enough that it wouldn't.
I think it's.
It's actually inlaid, but you put some black on, and then you actually press it in place, and then put
Okay, so
more
it's a fairly
black right
thick piece
over it.
of, it's a fairly thick piece of
It's
brass.
fairly thick, yeah, and that builds the lacquer up around it, and then when you sand it off, the brass comes back through, and it's
Yeah.
all in the finish.
So now we're doing I call it etching, but Steinway calls it scratch lines. And here, you can use either Scotch Brite or you can use steel wool. So, and there are different grades of Scotch Brites. This is the very fine. So if I was just doing a satin finish, this would be your ending point. And this, I would probably do it different now. I wouldn't, if you'll see it didn't stick properly to my block there. I think you could probably just do that by hand, or you wouldn't necessarily need to use a block behind it.
We usually, when you're finishing out, we're using blocks.
Use a block. Do you use Scotch Brite pads too, or?
Scotch Brite and then 4-aught after that.
How do you attach the? Do you just put a block and
You can just
just wrap around sides? Okay.
Yeah, because if you try to do it with your hand
You're
is not
just not perfectly flat. Yeah, and you can see even here, and I'm doing it. I'm trying to get it even. And Steinway recommends using it's the pumice stone, which can help. It's a very fine sort of. I guess it's literally ground up stone. I don't know exactly.
It's kind of nasty.
I didn't use it here, and so here next I'm using a. It's a finer grade of steel wool. So this is now we're getting into the satin luster. So basically what I'm doing here, it obscures those scratch lines so they're not quite as deep. So it reflects the light differently than if you were just doing a pure satin finish with the. And now the final step, and here I use a terry cloth. And this varies slightly, but it's all the same concept. Now it's a bit of putting a bit of a shine on there, and also going for evenness.
Didn't you find that acted weird when you did that?
No. This I think they talk about.
So does body.
Okay. Do you not?
Same thing with just a little water in your steel wool?
Okay, just kind of give it a bit of a shine, or.
Yeah, you just water it with
Yeah, and actually what I've done on other pianos at this school, I've gone over the entire piano just with steel wool and water and some soap, and it got out a lot of those micro scratches, and it really evened out the overall appearance. This, again, some of the scratches were a bit deeper, so I wanted to do some wet sanding first. So, and this, I don't leave this compound on here. The next step will be to actually clean it off with this pre-polish finish or cleaner.
See how it's like stuck? That's what I was asking about. Is how it sticks in different strips.
And I guess one thing I would note too, that in general, this type of finish over time, it gets shinier as it gets cleaned. And sometimes on the older satin finishes, they almost look glossy. All those scratch lines have been rubbed out just from years of cleaning. And then I'm finishing it off with the satin sheen here. And technically there's a bit of UV protectant, I think, in there, and also a dust repellent, they say. Anti-static. But yeah, I kind of see what you're saying. Like some of those areas, it's not perfectly even.
That polish really isn't on lacquer. It doesn't seem to work that well unless you're doing high gloss.
Oh, okay. They do actually. They suggest using with this in the Steinway guide using the purple Scotch Brite with the 3M Finesse It. That's what they say to use for the satin finish, and then finishing it. So, and I might. So I would take your word for that. I admittedly am experimenting with some of this, but this is the finished result, and I think it definitely looks better than it did.
Yep. Did you take a picture 2 months later?
That's the thing. It's just it's not, these piano finishes just don't stand up, it seems.
Nothing does.
And then finally, this is a Yamaha upright, polyester. So we've got a ton of swirl marks and some big scratches, that big one in the middle there. And I'm just could definitely feel it with my fingernail. I don't think my nail was catching on that one. But this was a early 90s and at a school. Just a very, very beat up piano. And I just did this at my own initiative, basically. And here I did use the buffing wheel or pad. And I started off with just the finer of the compounds, just to see what it would do. I think this was actually my first time using this piece of equipment. And you can see the compound was kind of working into the pad, so I didn't have enough on there. So just going back and forth, up and down, and back and forth, one section at a time. And then wiping. It's very convenient to have a lot of these cloths with you. You go through a lot of them with cleaning up all the compound. So here I think I switched to the, see it's the darker bottle compound, which is the Finesse It, which is a heavier grit. And I've been told it's not a good idea to try and chase a scratch in one particular area. If a scratch doesn't come out, sometimes you just have to accept it. You can lessen the appearance of it just by buffing over it. You kind of round those edges so it doesn't catch the light as much. And then the final step here, I used a different, this is now just more of a sponge. It's almost smooth on the dual action orbital sander. And this, the only thing I don't like about this particular piece of equipment is that it's very, very loud. At least to my ear, it was, but it works. And this sort of procedure, you could do it on a, theoretically, I mean, if you were in retail and selling pianos like here, maybe you go through it, all your pianos like this, I don't know, but it's a potential service that you could offer a customer in their home. And just a thought for what it's worth, and you could price it accordingly. But I think there's a market for this kind of work. And not a lot of people do this. And this is just the basic touch-up and repair. Again, they're more advanced. Oh yeah, but in general, there are also more difficult sorts of veneer repairs or fill repairs. That goes beyond the scope of what I have time to show today. But I think it got out a lot of the swirl marks, and these are little frazzly pieces from that buffing pad. It's still a new pad. I think it was shedding a lot. And there's still, maybe I already showed it, but there was that one scratch, that really deep one that didn't come out completely, and some of the small ones, they're still there. But if you compare it to what it did look like, I would say it's much improved.
Greatly improved.
And again, this is under light, close up, but if you back up away from it, it makes an improvement. And so in conclusion, touch up and repair is not refinishing. We're aiming for improvement, not perfection. Know your limitations. And this is the sort of service that you can really add value for your customers. So that's all I have. Thank you very much.